Big matchup on Sunday at the Link. It's the 9-3 Philadelphia Eagles up against the 8-4 Seattle Seahawks at 425 right here in South Philadelphia. And a few weeks ago at Temple University, it was the Temple University Sports Summit, and the big keynote speaker was Peter King, and everyone knows Peter from Monday Morning Quarterback and Football Night in America on NBC. And Peter's kind enough to give us a few minutes right now. Peter, Zach Gelb here at Temple University. Thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
Sure, Zach. Happy to be on. How are you?
I'm doing great, and we appreciate a few minutes. And everyone here in Philly is very happy with the play of the Eagles on Thanksgiving as they took down the Cowboys 33-10 in Jerry's World. And we all know Nick Foles has been down for a few weeks as he suffered that injury, and Mark Sanchez has been implemented in as the signal caller for the Eagles. And the big key with Sanchez, as we saw in his downfall in New York, is limiting those turnovers. And on Thursday, he was 20 of 29 for 217 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Chip Kelly expanded that playbook a little bit and had him run the ball a few times. This week, you're going up against a Super Bowl winning defense in the Seattle Seahawks. They know how to turn over the ball with Richard Sherman at cornerback and a bunch of other players. How does Sanchez limit the turnovers this week? I think that's the biggest key to this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you don't want to go into a shell against Seattle. That won't work. And also, I think Seattle has done a much better job playing a run, especially in the last couple weeks since Bobby Wagner and Cam Chancellor have been back. So I think what's really important for Philadelphia is to not say, I think the Packers made a big mistake in the first game of the year. They basically Seattle took Jordy Nelson out of the game because Aaron Rodgers, who's to me the most accurate pinpoint passer today, who's playing, chose not to throw to Sherman's side of the field basically the entire game. They lost by 20. I just don't think you can do that. I think that there have been teams. I mean, Arizona, I thought, made some plays, and the Giants made some plays against Seattle by going against and not shying away from going against Richard Sherman's side of the field. So, and I'm not saying you're going to make a living going to Richard Sherman's side of the field, but I think occasionally you need to do that. And Mark Sanchez has to have the confidence in his receivers on that side of the field to throw over there. So I would hope that they would do that, and that they would say, in essence, we're using the whole field. We're not just going to use half of it.
One Eagles wide receiver that Sanchez has a lot of confidence in, and it's a rookie. And the rookies this year, from a receiving standpoint, have been sensational all across the board in the National Football League, has been Jordan Matthews. How has their connection been so special? Because when Sanchez has taken off and been the starter for this team, Matthews has really elevated his game and found a way to get to the end zone.
I think the biggest thing is that Jordan Matthews came in, I don't want to say NFL ready, but he really prepared to enter training camp as an NFL receiver. I know one of the things, talking to Chip Kelly at training camp this year, he said it was really impressive how Jordan Matthews came into their meeting, even at the scouting combine, where players get 15 minutes, with a prescribed number of teams, that he came into their meeting asking very specific questions about their offense and having studied their offense. And then later, when he spent either a day or much of a day with the Eagles, Kelly could tell that he had done his homework and that he knew a lot about the offense that they ran, about the schemes. And so I think mentally he came into the game, he came into the pro game much more ready. So that makes it more, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but it strikes me that there can't be many rookies in the league. I know Jarvis Landry has, because he also came in really ready in Miami, but there can't be many rookies in the league who've had the ball thrown to them more than Jordan Matthews have. Maybe Mike Evans, possibly Sammy Watkins, but clearly there's this trust walking in the door that Jordan Matthews had.
Staying with the receivers, because that's a big key this week for the Eagles if they're going to want to find a way to beat the Seattle Seahawks at home at 4:25, as we're spending a few minutes with Peter King for Monday Morning Quarterback and Football Night in America on NBC. Zach Gelb here with you for WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Has been Jeremy Maclin. He's only here on a one-year deal this year. It was kind of a, hey, go prove it, and then we'll give you a long-term deal. If Jeremy Maclin is able to stay healthy in these final 4 regular season games and however long the Eagles' playoff run is, I would have to imagine the Eagles are going to have to open up their paybooks this year and pay Jeremy Maclin.
I would think that that they really need to keep Maclin if he exits the year healthy, and if Chip Kelly thinks he can be the kind of durable player in that offense. I mean, look, it takes a special kind of receiver to play in Chip Kelly's offense because, I mean, look at it. The Eagles lead the NFL in average plays per game with about 75. They're way ahead of most of the league. And so you've got to be durable. You've got to be, you've got to have great cardio, and you've got to love this system. And right now, I think that's fortunate for him that he really fits in exactly what they want to do. So I think that the Eagles, unless the price gets out of control, and I don't think it would get out of control because I think that in today's game, receivers are coming out of college football so NFL ready that if Chip Kelly, if he sets a number, whatever the number is, let's say the number is 4 years, $40 million. I don't know what it would be. And if he's unwilling to do that and he thinks he'll be a distraction playing for the franchise tag, then Chip Kelly is not going to have any fear in drafting a guy or going to get a guy in free agency and plugging him in. It's like the Patriots have a value for receivers. They think that receivers, this is not exactly right, but they basically think receivers are a dime a dozen. So Tom Brady can make Brandon LaFell look really good. And that's what I think Chip Kelly will be looking for with his quarterback, to be able to adjust to the quality of receiver they're going to have there. Because even going back to Oregon, Chip Kelly had a slew of good receivers, but he didn't have Calvin Johnson, he didn't have Andre Johnson, he didn't have Sammy Watkins. So I think Chip has made it clear in his actions that he believes he can win with a variety of receivers playing.
Get into a quarterback's best friend, the run game with LaShawn McCoy. He's had an up-and-down year. The last 2 games, he's run over 100 yards in back-to-back efforts. What's your assessment on Shady McCoy this year?
I think that he suffered when they really were playing musical chairs on the offensive line. The line's getting healthier. And so, the last 2 weeks, he's probably been the best back in football, he and C.J. Anderson. And I think it all has to do with the line getting healthy and with McCoy having a bit of a chip on his shoulder about everybody saying, what's wrong with you? Well, football is obviously it's a team game. It's an 11-man game. And if you're playing with, 7 of your normal guys and 4 guys who are fill-ins, the performance of the 11 is going to suffer. And I think that's what happened. But I look for him to have a real strong end of the year.
Peter King is our guest, Monday Morning Quarterback and Football Night in America, right here on Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Let's get to the defense. Billy Davis has done a really good job improving each week at the front 7. I'm not sold on this secondary. I still think it's a weak part of this football team. But if you get a pass rush like you saw in the Giants game a few weeks back, it's going to be hard to beat the Eagles. Kendricks, Fletcher, Connor Barwin, those guys are really elevating their game, and it's paying off for the Eagles, Peter.
Connor Barwin's really having an amazing year. I've been so impressed with him. I've always viewed him as sort of, a nice piece to your puzzle. And he's proving this year that he's so much more than that. He looks a little bit quicker, honestly, around the edge. And they're letting him play, I think. They're letting him play more instinctively. And I think he really likes Bill Davis's defense. So, I think Philadelphia's defense, A, it's been better than I thought. B, it's really highlighted some guys who either, America didn't know yet or America knew but didn't know it was this good.
You take a look at the Seattle offense. They've been up and down through the course of the year. Some weeks people are saying, hey, no one could beat Seattle. Then some weeks people are saying, hey, what's happening? Is it a Super Bowl hangover? I believe Seattle's getting hot at the right time. But one guy I just don't understand, and you cover the NFL a lot longer than I have, is Marshawn Lynch. Some weeks he doesn't speak to the media, and then when he does speak to the media, it's either a yes or no answer. There's been some rumors out there on Twitter and all these social media sites that he may be contemplating retirement at the end of the year, or he may move with Tom Cable. Do you have a take on Marshawn Lynch? Can you explain Marshawn Lynch?
Well, I think he's a complicated guy. I think he's one of those guys who his teammates absolutely, totally love. I mean, what's really interesting about the guy is if you're on his team and you're a friend of his, I mean, the stories of what he'll do. I mean, it's really interesting. One of his former coaches was actually dating a PR guy in the NFL. Just coincidence of coincidences. He was dating a PR guy in the NFL, and Marshawn Lynch, without telling this coach, called around to friends of his on this team and asked these guys, "Hey, is your PR guy okay? I'm just trying to do a little background check on him. I just want to make sure that my coach's daughter is doing okay." I mean, who does that? And I mean, when the coach found out, he was just totally blown. He was blown away. He was just,
Yeah.
wow, that's really an incredible thing for him to do. So, look, I think one of the things that you notice with him is that he does not like to be told what to do. He's an iconoclast. He's a guy who, just really, he'll do his job in football, but don't bother me before the game, don't bother me after the game. And so I think he views it's basically an infringement on his rights to be told that he has to do this. And the NFL, on the other hand, is thinking that, okay, if a star like Marshawn Lynch comes out and says, I'm not talking to the press, even though there's a clause in your contract that you have to cooperate with the media, and there's broad interpretations of what exactly that means. But there's a clause in the standard player contract that calls for players to cooperate to some degree with the press. So if you don't do it, now the question is, okay, if you're the league, do you just let it go? And then if you have a star who doesn't do it, then do you have 10 guys from every team saying, I've never wanted to talk to the press anyway, I hate those guys, so I'm not doing it. And so, to me, I think there would be, I don't know whether it would be 10, I think it would be 20 on some teams, none on some others. But it would clearly open the door for people to cherry pick whether they wanted to talk or not. So I think that's one of the reasons why the league takes it kind of seriously.
I have to ask you for the latest with the stuff that's going on off the field. Obviously, Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson committed heinous acts, but as you know, this is a second chance league. We've seen players make a comeback after doing some really disgusting things off the field. Two-part question here. Were you surprised that Ray Rice was reinstated? And what team do you think will give him a chance to play, if it's this year or next year?
Not at all surprised. I mean, look, if you look at the history of how the NFL has dealt with domestic violence, the biggest suspension they've ever given anybody before Ray Rice was 2 games. So Goodell gave him 2 games. The social and the world just seemed to explode over that. So Goodell then obviously rethought his position and said, look, in the future, a first-time offender with domestic violence, with some asterisk on it, but all first-time offenders are going to get 6 games at least. So if Goodell gave him 2 games in the first place, then said that the first-time offender would get 6 games, and then, but also called Rice to say at that time, I'm not going to make this retroactive. I'm not going to punish you again for this act. So you're still going to be 2 games. And then, after he saw the second video, according to Goodell, he then, suspended him indefinitely, and that suspension now basically became an extra 10 games. So my point about all this is no one in NFL history has ever been suspended longer than 2 games. You gave Ray Rice 2 games, and now he's been out 12 games. So how anybody could say that that's not enough, regardless of what the offense was. I mean, I've said this, over and over. I mean, the only reason that people are so bat crazy about this is because they saw the video. What do you think
No
normally
question.
happens with domestic violence? I mean, do you think that no player has ever punched his wife in the face before? I mean, so I just think that the fact that this was captured on video has led to where we are today. And it's unfortunate, obviously, that he did it, but I also think that 12 games plus, a lifetime scar for this is probably enough.
And what's the latest on Adrian Peterson? What are you hearing on that front?
I think he's going to be reinstated as well. I think Peterson, if he's reinstated, say by sometime in the next 4 or 5 days, I think he would have a better chance to play this year than Rice is. Rice would, because Adrian Peterson is a better football player. And at the time, at the start of this year, Adrian Peterson was a premier NFL running back. Ray Rice was a guy coming off an awful year, averaged 3.1 yards a carry, and people weren't exactly sure how good he was or what he has left. So, I think people would be willing to roll the dice on Adrian Peterson, some team, by the end of this year, but I think there's less than a 10% chance that, or about a 10% chance or less, I would say, that someone will sign Rice. I think Rice will get signed by by sometime in the off season. Somebody give him a chance to come to training camp and win a job, but I'd be surprised if it happened this year.
Real quickly before we let Peter King run, final one here as we're talking to Peter King, Football Night in America on NBC and the mastermind behind Monday Morning Quarterback. Packers and Patriots, that lived up to the hype. Pats went down on the road in Lambeau. It's a tough place to win. Aaron Rodgers was on point and came up with that big conversion on 3rd down, and Tom Brady wasn't happy. I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFL. It is December, so we're getting closer to the Super Bowl. What is Peter King's Super Bowl prediction?
I think those are the best 2 teams, and I think that they are on pace right now to get home field advantage. So I think they'd be favored to get to the Super Bowl, the 2 best teams playing the best. But I'd also say that Seattle and Denver are going to have something to say about it, because Seattle has regained its defensive edge, and Denver obviously now is a multifaceted offense with the emergence of C.J. Anderson. So I still think it's really, really wide open, but I would pick New England and Green Bay, as would I think most people probably in America today, if they had to just go to Vegas and put $5 down on who you think is getting to the Super Bowl.
Peter, it's always a thrill to talk to you. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. Bye.